What was meant to be a joyful holiday turns into a nightmare in the November 25th episode of Beyond the Gates. Joey and Vanessa's attempt at a private, romantic moment is ruthlessly destroyed, while Haley seethes with anger as Bill embraces the Dupree family traditions, leaving her feeling sidelined and betrayed. Meanwhile, Andre and Danny face a life-threatening fire, forcing Andre to rush her to the hospital in a panic. Amidst the chaos, Eva finds a rare moment of happiness with Ted and Leslie, and Martin and Smitty anxiously welcome a special guest, adding even more drama. This episode promises relentless tension as every character is pushed to the edge, grappling with fury, betrayal, and extreme reactions. Joey's heart pounded as he tried to carve out a sacred corner of the holiday for himself and Vanessa, a fragile refuge of tenderness in the sea of familial obligations. He had been planning this for weeks. Late nights alone, soft lights, whispered surprises, but each time he imagined the moment, Donald's shadow loomed larger. Vanessa, with her gentle laugh and hopeful eyes, leaned into him, believing he could deliver something genuine, something deeply theirs. But when Donnell barged in, as though drawn by some instinct to disrupt, Joey felt the careful walls he'd built crack. That intrusion was not simply physical. It was a violation, a reminder that he could never fully isolate himself from his complicated life. The anger that flared inside him was unexpected. Betrayal lanced through his thoughts. He realized that Donald's interference was not accidental. Whatever Donald's motives, he'd ripped open the intimate membrane Joey had tried so hard to protect. Vanessa, too, recoiled in confusion and hurt. She had trusted Joey to safeguard their sanctuary, to shield their moment from the prying eyes and ears of the world. But now she felt exposed, vulnerable not just to Donald's presence, but to the deeper insecurity that perhaps Joey could not truly set her above the rest of his life. In that shattering moment, she questioned whether love alone was enough to carve out space when there were so many others jostling for attention, demanding part of him. Meanwhile, Haley simmered with frustration and indignation. Bill's decision to embrace the Dupree family traditions felt like a repudiation of everything she once believed in. She watched him defer, conform, melt into the very ceremonies she hated, and her chest tightened with resentment. It wasn't simply the old customs or the ritualistic pageantry, it was the erasure of her. In Bill's acceptance, she felt sidelined, erased, treated as a guest in a world that was supposed to be theirs together. Her mind churned with questions. Did he choose her? Or did he choose the legacy? With each carol sung, each toast made to long-dead ancestors, she felt a fresh crack in their bond. The festive lights around her blurred, turning instead into accusatory sparks that burned with emotional intensity. As she watched Bill laugh and toast with the Dupree elders, Haley's bitterness coiled into a dangerous determination. The holiday, in her mind, had become a battleground. Not of snowmen and wreaths, but of loyalty and belonging. She resolved that she would no longer be the silent outsider. She would make him feel the cost of this integration, even if it meant tearing down everything she once cherished in their partnership. All the while, Andre and Danny were grappling with a storm far more literal and lethal. Their plan for a peaceful holiday, perhaps inviting close friends, maybe even mending old rifts, collapsed in an instant when a fire broke out. It was chaos incarnate, smoke-filled rooms, roaring flames, desperate shouts echoing through hallways. Danny, caught in the wrong place at the wrong time, found herself trapped. The pain that struck her was more than physical. Each gasp of smoke, each heartbeat threatened by the encroaching heat brought her limits into blistering clarity. Andre watched in horror, paralyzed by fear and helplessness, his worst nightmares realized. In that inferno, he encountered a primal terror. The possibility of losing her, the woman who embodied his fiercest love and most tender vulnerability. The fire forced Andre into a devastating choice. With every second, he weighed risk and reward. Should he go on alone, risking his life to save hers, or wait for help, hoping help would arrive in time? When he finally wrenched himself forward, he discovered an internal reservoir of strength he never knew he had, and yet that strength was spurred by the most gutting desperation. He carried Danny out, her body heavy, her breathing ragged, and called for an ambulance with trembling hands. Watching her being loaded into the emergency vehicle, a thunderous guilt washed over him, followed by a cold dread. What if he failed her? What if she didn't make it? The holiday, once full of promise, had metamorphosed into a tableau of guilt, sacrifice, and the agonizing realization that some choices could haunt him forever. And Danny, even as she lay in a sterile hospital room later, felt the sting of betrayal, too. This fire was not just an accident, it felt like a cosmic reckoning. Their relationship had been strained before by unspoken resentments, by secret fears. Now, unconscious or weak from the smoke, she was forced to confront the truth that maybe she had ignored the deeper cracks in their bond for far too long. Her pain, physical and emotional, was a mirror of their past neglect. Times when he didn't listen, when she didn't push him, when they let silence settle between them like dust. Elsewhere, Eva's world shone in soft contrast, a beacon of warmth and joy. With Ted and Leslie beside her, she drifted through the gathering with a sense of peace she hadn't allowed herself in a long time. Their laughter wove through the room, harmonizing with the glow of candlelight and the gentle hum of holiday music. In that serene moment, Eva felt beloved. Cherished not for what she provided, but simply for who she was. The quiet significance of this reunion struck her. After so many betrayals, so many broken promises, she had carved out a space where honesty and acceptance reigned. It was a fragile garden in a world full of thorns, and yet, for once, she believed she could tend it without fear. But beneath the surface of joy lay a secret fear. Eva knew that these tender halcyon hours could collapse at any moment. She carried memories of past disappointments, whispered regrets, and relationships that crumbled. Still, as she looked at Ted and Leslie, she wondered, what if this time, she let herself fully open? Could she risk everything again? Not far from that warmth, Martin and Smitty sat at the edge of their festive dinner table, hearts pounding with anticipation. They had extended an invitation to someone special. A guest whose arrival they hoped would bring healing, reconciliation, maybe even a new chapter. When that person finally walked through the door, their affection mingled with nervous hope. The holiday setting amplified everything, the clink of glasses, the swirl of laughter, the bittersweet hush when eyes met across the room. For Martin, the guest's presence symbolized more than a reunion, it felt like redemption. For Smitty, it was a fragile dream, a longing made tangible. Yet both of them understood that with this arrival came risk. What if old wounds reopened? What if the person they invited carried pain or grudges they hadn't anticipated? In their minds, Martin and Smitty balanced gratitude and dread. They longed for the evening to be perfect, to feel that long-missed family connection restored. But they also feared that a single misstep, a careless word, a hidden resentment, could turn this holiday celebration into a reckoning. Their hope was courageous, but vulnerability flickered behind their smiles. Back in the Dupree household, Joey's resentment toward Donnell evolved into something darker, a suspicion that Donnell had deliberately exploited the holiday to gain leverage, to test the strength of Joey's loyalty, or perhaps to unmask Joanne's blind spots. Vanessa, too, struggled with inner turmoil. She had loved Joey for his openness, his ability to dream of a future for them. But now she wondered whether that future would always be under siege by others who demanded a place in it. Haley, consumed by her rage, considered confronting Bill not with kind words or quiet sadness, but with something like war. Her internal dialogue twisted. Would she humiliate him in front of his family? Or expose the hollowness she saw beneath his piety and tradition? She could feel vengeance rising, but she also felt vulnerable. In seeking retribution, she risked damaging the very thing she cherished, their bond. Andre, in the hospital corridor, paced like a caged animal. He felt fear, shame, a ruthless self-judgment. He had let Danny be endangered. He replayed every moment in his mind, the flicker of the flame, the smoke curling into her lungs, the way he had cried out for help. He was furious with himself. And gratitude churned next to that. Gratitude that she survived, gratitude that paramedics arrived, but also a weary realization that their relationship would never be the same. In saving her, he had exposed every weakness, every mistake. They would have to rebuild trust from ash. Once Danny regained consciousness, her first internal reaction was confusion and betrayal. What if the fire had been caused by someone? What if it wasn't an accident? She recalled moments from earlier in the evening. Candles left by unattended windows, electrical sparks from faulty lights, and her mind reeled with the possibility that someone had set them up. Her heart hammered not just in fear, but in doubt. She loved Andre, and she knew his devotion, but now she questioned whether his attention had always been enough, whether he'd seen her, not just the strong, vibrant Danny, but the fragile, quiet parts she kept hidden. In that hospital room, as the holiday lights outside blinked in the distance, she confronted a painful realization that love, no matter how fierce, sometimes needs more than rescue. It needs accountability. It needs acknowledgement of faults and hurt. She wasn't willing to return to her old life without demanding honesty, without insisting that their love be rebuilt on stronger ground. Simultaneously, Haley wrestled with the knowledge that Bill's embrace of tradition could be more than mere acceptance. Perhaps it was a desire to placate, to hide conflicts he didn't know how to face. Her anger hardened into clarity. She would not be a footnote in his story. If she stayed, she would demand not just a seat at the table, but respect, equality, and if he refused, she would walk away. Joey and Vanessa, still reeling from Donald's intrusion, now found themselves navigating a shifting terrain of trust and suspicion. Joey's internal guilt cut him. By wanting a moment away, had he neglected his broader responsibilities? By building a bubble with Vanessa, had he unintentionally shut others out, provoking Donald's jealousy or resentment? And Vanessa, watching him so haunted, wondered whether his love for her was enough to withstand the forces that always seemed to circle them. In another part of the house, Eva closed her eyes and breathed in the warmth around her. She felt something delicate and precious forming. A quiet alliance, a truce with the past, a rebirth of hope. But the memory of what she had lost before whispered in the back of her mind, reminding her that even the most joyful gatherings could crack under pressure. Could this peaceful holiday be real, or was it just a fragile illusion, destined to shatter once the next betrayal came? Martin and Smitty, watching their special guest across the table, felt the weight of unspoken history. The laughter and toasts were genuine, but both men knew their guest had come bearing more than gratitude. There were old wounds and silent hopes, and the possibility that this dinner might bring either healing or a rupture that couldn't be mended. Yet in Martin's chest, a cautious optimism took root. Maybe this night could mark a new beginning. As the evening wound on, the various threads of conflict converged in the shared space. Joey's resentment, Haley's fury, Andre's guilt, Danny's doubt, Eva's hope, Martin and Smitty's longing all simmered under the surface, unseen by those who only saw festive cheer. The holiday had become not just a celebration, but a crucible, testing loyalties, exposing vulnerabilities, and forcing each person to decide whether to cling to old patterns, or risk something deeper and more honest. By the time the night ended, no one remained unchanged. Joey and Vanessa stood on uncertain ground, grappling with whether their private world could survive external intrusion. Haley wrestled with the choice between staying in a tradition she rejected or walking into the unknown alone. Andre and Danny faced the long road ahead, knowing that saving a life was only the beginning of rebuilding trust. Eva, filled with gentle joy, nonetheless braced herself for the fragility of newfound peace. Martin and Smitty, with hopeful hearts, acknowledged that reconciliation comes at a cost, but maybe, just maybe, this holiday had planted the seeds of something real. In the cold hush that followed the dinner, when the lights were dimmed and the guests had gone home, each of them was left with a question echoing in their souls: what comes next, when the spectacle of celebration fades, when only truth remains?